It was in 1911 that for the first time International Women's Day was officially celebrated. Today, after over 100 years, women around the world are still fighting for equal rights. To talk about the power gap and pay gap, perception toward capability of women, and whether Canada is ready for a woman Prime Minister, we have with us a special guest and a powerful speaker who has been an advocate for women's rights for over 20 years. She has volunteered with organizations addressing eating disorder and self-esteem issues in young girls. She has also done charitable work for Canadian Cancer Society and Canadian Mental Health Association. She is a national ambassador for Plan Canada initiative Because I'm a Girl. Red FM welcomes Canada's First Lady, Sophie Gregoire Trudeau. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure.
Thank you. So I will go to the hardest question first. Sophie, no doubt that women have come a long way in terms of better status, more rights, more equality. But this all seems at the level of policies, processes, and law. Often the perception toward women still does not see her as capable enough. As women of this country and the world, how do you think we change this perception so our daughters, Ella Graces and Zara's, are perceived as capable enough to run countries and companies?
That's a great question. And I think that the hardest questions are the most important ones in our society because they allow us to face our truths as individuals, as women, as a society, as a country, as a planet. I think the responsibility of a human being, the hardest one that we have to face in a lifetime is probably to face ourselves and to know ourselves. And, you know, it's not by lack of talent and lack of pool of amazing women that there are not enough women representation out there. It is because the old structures need to be renewed. I do think that structures are slowly changing and becoming more flexible, more malleable, and I would say accommodating the lives of women because the truth is that women are still the nucleus of the family. And right now in a pandemic, women are, mostly the ones who are quitting their job to take care of the kids at home and are malleable and flexible enough to accommodate for this to work, but to their own detriment in many ways. Right now, we face an emergency crisis with women, vulnerable, marginalized, racialized women, Indigenous women, women with disabilities, transgender women across the country in a challenging time and in a pandemic where they're the ones suffering the most. And in times of crisis around the planet, that is true as well. So not only do we have to change the system with time, but we also have to become more conscious as individuals because we know we are capable, we know we are talented, and we know we can do it. Now we have to fill those spaces.
The corporate world is still considered an old boys club. The power gap and the pay gap are still prevalent. Do you think it is, again, a perception of capability issue, or can it be fixed with strong policies, legislation?
Listen, I think it's a mix of a lot of elements. There's not one solution to deeply rooted problems in our society. But what I can tell you from what I've seen and what I've been hearing from women from across the country, and also from men and boys, because as a gender equality advocate, I am always interested in having the men and boys, interject with how they are feeling, because the notion of femininity that we have been all caught in that has not served us well. In many ways, the notion of masculinity that boys and men have been caught in has not taught us to create equal structures and to create structures that allow for men and women to truly flourish. And unfortunately, this has affected more women than men. So not only do we need to redefine structures, but we need to redefine power. And that starts within the individual and within our own homes, at the kitchen table, and how we treat our own boys and girls within our own family unit. I'm a mother of 2 boys, and let me tell you that, my generation, I'm 45, I'm turning 46 soon, and I'm realizing that with all the trauma, legacy, and everything that generations before us have gone through, we have had more education and knowledge on topics of mental health and trauma, that we're able to break cycles of trauma, of addiction, of dependent behaviors and all that. But not to say that they don't exist anymore. They truly do, and we all have our own struggles. But we are more aware, and also I would say there's less and less stigma about talking about, personal issues that might affect our life and people around us. And I think that the more we allow for people to express what is repressed, the more we'll create human progress. And this is quite the lesson, because that means that we need to educate our kids from a young age more about their own emotions, so they can develop their own independent emotional literacy, and they can nourish more peaceful and compassionate relationships with themselves and therefore with the world. And that means true deep change.
I'm glad that you bring men into this equation, because sometimes feminism sees men as enemy. Can you talk a little more about that?
I want to clarify this, and thank you for putting it into those words, because I'm aware that that is a perception. But I assure you that my feminism and the feminism, your feminism, and my husband's feminism and my son's feminism does not push men away. Quite the opposite. Feminism in 2021 means a more inclusive, a more just, and a more equitable system for everyone to flourish, and to making sure that we're addressing the gender gap, that we are addressing the fact that right now we are in what we call a she session, because, the economic backfall of a pandemic has huge impact on the lives of women. And if we continue to include men and boys in this equation for equality, we will be able to create true progress. But it's the only way.
Do you see a female Prime Minister of Canada in the future?
Absolutely. And who doesn't? Why not? And if you're not ready for it, ask yourself the question, why? And where does that come from? Prime Minister could be any gender they identify with, or she or he or they or whatever. If you're qualified for the job and you want to be, at a level of opportunity and challenge, absolutely.
Sophie, women and young girls are judged more for how they look, for what they do, and this impacts their self-esteem. I understand as a teenager, you struggled with it too. Talk to a young girl who's hurting right now, who's struggling with her self-esteem.
Yes, and I hear a lot of young girls are struggling with self-esteem issues, and that has been my path for the past 20 years. I suffered from self-esteem issues and anxiety and eating disorders when I was younger. So I speak from experience, but my experience is only relevant if I can help others. And I think that the more we allow people to express what is repressed, to share their struggles, to say, hey, I'm not doing well, and what I'm seeing out there, I can't identify myself with. All the images of women and girls that we get through social media or television or print or whatever it is that we consume, they affect us. So my message to girls would be so mindful at what you consume, because we become what we consume. We become what we bring our attention to. Therefore, if we change what we consume, and if we bring closer to us things that make us feel happy, that make us feel that we are progressing, that we are moving forward, then not only are we going to be more fit, in our minds, but this will give us, more energy to take on projects that we would have thought we never could have done before.
You're a certified yoga instructor. Did yoga help you achieve a better reflection of yourself?
Yes, I started practicing yoga about 15 years ago, and it was a revelation to me in the fact that not only did I find the practice calming, but also physically demanding, which is a great thing, because if we don't play with our edges, if we don't push our limits, what do we know what we're really made of? We need to be able to have our own hero's journey as women and girls, and we need to be able to push our limits and be adventurous emotionally and with our bodies physically to discover what we're made of, because we're resilient, courageous, strong, beings. And yoga for me was finding a community of people who share those values, and also a practice that made me feel better in my own body. And I also meditate and teach meditation, and it's something that has changed my life completely. I think that, we're so busy and our lives are so chaotic and we take so much time on our phones and on our screens. There's no excuse for us to not take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 60 seconds, an hour, whatever you have, to actually just be in silence with yourself or listen to soft music and meditate. The thing is that people think that they have to be good at this. We don't. You just have to show up for yourself, and that's more than good enough. There is no competition here, and there is no rating. There's enough competition and rating in life. We don't need it anymore. When it comes to yoga and meditation, it's just about showing up for yourself. And it works. It has tangible effects.
In closing, Sophie, what would you like to say to the women of Canada on this International Women's Day?
First of all, that I love them for who they are, that they're appreciated for who they are, and that I have nothing to change with their appearance or their behavior, that they are loved and understood how they are, and that they're never alone. Not one woman, not one girl out there is alone in her struggles. You can offer up your challenges. There's a tribe, there's a community, there's a society of women who want your well-being and want you to thrive, and I'm one of them. And trust me when I say that there is more than me, and I'm not the most important person in here. There's thousands, if not hundreds of women out there who have their own struggles and who are only waiting to find allies on the path so we can actually grow together.
It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your time today.
The pleasure was mine. Happy International Women's Day, everyone.
Thank you.
Red FM